and see what's there. So we're talking here with the Utah Postgres users group about the PG16 and new features that are coming up. And so we'll just go through some of these. Let's see, you guys can see the screen okay, right? Yeah. So yeah, this is my information about, as a speaker, I kind of put this on every presentation I do. If you want to find anything or get any information from me, you can get it from any of these spots. You can always find this if you just search on the web too. I'm pretty open. So let's get right into some of the things that we found on PG16. And at the end, the last slide I have is just some of the resources where I found some of these things, you know, some of these things that are coming up in PG16 and what they're going to do. So I'll share that link so that everybody can see it and they can do their own research on these things as well. So related to performance, there's been query plan optimizations. I love it when databases say this because they're like, we query plan optimized. Okay, what specifically did you do? Because I've never had a database release that didn't say they did some sort of plan optimization. So, but in this case, what I pulled from it was you can start to parallelize full and write joins. So, you know, that's, to me, that's a double-edged sword. I'm like, you shouldn't be doing full joins too much. You shouldn't be doing write joins too much. But if you are, you can now parallelize them. And then also there's a bunch of distinct and order by improvements too, so as well.
Does it do it automatically or do you have to provide some kind of hint?
So the question was, does it do it automatically or is there some sort of hint? Right now it's automatic. So these optimizations, as far as what's been described that I've seen in documentation, is just, we changed this, it's doing this better, it's doing it more performant. Wasn't doing it this way before, now it is. So, and that's typical with anything sort of query plan. You don't always have like a hint or a turn on. You just, they're like, oh, we wanted to do this better, so we did it this way, and it's better. So, the bulk loading one, I looked this one up a little bit, and what I got from my quick little reading and stuff was just the copy command had been optimized to, I don't think they said parallel was the word, but it's doing something a lot faster. Now, for me personally, when I've used copy in the past, it's blazing fast. So I'm really curious as to what they did to make it even quicker, because personally for me, Postgres, one of their copy commands have been one of the fastest things I've ever dealt with. Like when I move data in SQL Server, it's a lot slower than that copy command. So I don't know what they did here specifically, but it's really good. So. And again, anybody can add in if they have comments while I'm going through this, or ask questions.
I've only seen that copy command where the ETL team is getting data from us. I think that's the only one that I've seen it.
I've used copy in several different places now for different things. Like we used to copy out to CSVs or things like that, or output files, and then we also would copy between databases all the time. So like, let's say we needed to get from one server to another, we would use copy all the time to move things between those two servers.
Do you think copy is what the replication uses behind the scenes?
I'm trying to remember. I thought the snapshot used copy originally. I can't remember 100%. I did a logical replication presentation, but I can't remember if it uses.
Logical replication uses the wall.
They use the wall, okay.
Yeah.
What about the snapshot? What about the snapshot, Roberto? When they do the snapshot to do the initial push over there, don't they use copy?
Well, are you talking about like PG upgrade or?
Well, like if you set up a logical replication and you say create publication, and then you have the snapshot to the other side to get the data to the other place, the initial snapshot, I think, is through copy commands.
Yeah, that would be.
But just that part. After that, it starts reading the wall log.
Yep. Yeah.
But when you're doing that initial snapshot, I believe it's copy. I'm pretty sure it was copy when I did it before. So, I mean, copy is the way you kind of move data between Postgres, unless you're doing a foreign data wrapper. Foreign data wrapper is another way you can do it. Too slow. Well, that's a big debate. Foreign data wrappers have been debated a lot. I've seen a few presentations where they're supposed to be better, but so, and then there was improved vacuum. Again, I didn't get a lot of in-depth on what the improved vacuum was, besides maybe just some optimizations to the code. I didn't clearly see what it was inside the documentation, but they did improve it. And keep in mind when you get new database releases and everything like this. These are the things when they say we've upped performance by say 10% or 15% or something like that. That's usually what it falls into, is this category right here. And you can see them increase that. And a lot of database tools will always say this. They'll always say every version we've upped by 5% performance or 8% performance or whatever. And this is usually where it comes from.
Yeah, there were a number of things there with vacuum. Like they changed the freezing, they improved freezing, they improved shared buffer usage in vacuum. They did um they improved toast, something with toast in vacuum that they improved.
Yeah.
There were a number of things. There were some people from Microsoft who were working on that. Melanie Blageman.
Yeah,
Um,
that sounds
there are a
familiar.
number of things there because vacuum tends to bite a lot of people.
Mhm. Yes, it does. And needs improvement. So
Yeah.
it's there. It's getting improved on. Okay. Any other questions on performance from anybody?
Yeah, I'm just kind of like curious when they talk of optimize like query plan optimization. Like for example, I know in Oracle, similar to what Eric was saying, you can somehow force the optimizer to use a specific query plan by providing a hint. So with this query plan optimization, what do they really improve on? What do they add? That can basically help with query plan or something like that.
Yeah, so the question is can you force query plans right now in PG 16? Is that what you're asking, Bilvin?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think that's still the case right now. I don't
Yeah,
think that's something they added into it.
Yeah, I don't think so. That's been proposed multiple times. It's been rejected all the times that I kept track of. The thinking in the Postgres developers are we shouldn't be telling people, we shouldn't be letting people tell the optimizer what to do because there are a number of side effects that they might not be aware of. So they just say, well, if you want to contribute an improvement to the optimizer, yeah, we'll take that. But
Yeah, I agree with you there that that's been their stand, is that they just haven't said, no, we're not going to allow it. But I will say most other relational database platforms have some sort of freeze or force plan sort of thing out there. SQL Server has it, Oracle has it. I believe MySQL has it now too as well, where you can hint at things like that. So, but yeah, they don't have that in place yet. And whether we see that in the future or not, never know. Well, you can definitely go make a discussion on the contributor side of things. Okay, so this is the big one that I saw that was really kind of a big thing that's changing, and that's because in logical replication, they're starting to work on bidirectional replication. Bidirectional replication, if you're a SQL Server person, that's called merge replication. Oracle, it's where you can update two tables essentially at the same time, sort of thing. That's what bidirectional is doing here. You can replicate data between two tables from different publishers. So the problem when you get into bidirectional replication is conflicts. Somebody updates my name from Pat to Joe, and somebody on some other side updates my name from Joe to Pat. Then what happens when they come together? Am I Pat or am I Joe? And that's where you really run into conflicts and things like that. The way that Postgres is dealing with this, and this is the first kind of iteration of this, so you're going to see a lot of changes here. But the way they're starting with this is they're saying you have an originator. You say this is who originated it, and then they cannot cycle around itself. It can't go into a loop. You can't update it in one place, then update another, and then go back and do it again and again and again. It has an originator to kind of stop that.
So these are like two primary tables that are.
That can be written to at the same time. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I love that they put it in there. I think it's great. But every time I've tried to implement something like merge in the past, it's really an issue for the application and for what it's doing and how it works in those conflicts. I run into it a lot when I've seen it. So
There's no such thing like a pen only.
append only? I don't think so. Not with this. This is gonna say, I'm gonna deal with conflicts.
yeah, so yeah, it's a work in progress, like Pat said, for a number of things that are coming out of the pipeline. They basically added a field to the wall record to say where that data came from, where that piece of data came from. Whereas before, you just here's the data,
Yep.
and that allowed them to do that.
And this is like, again, it's step one. So I
Yeah.
would take this heavily with a grain of salt. I would not go and build some new system off of this right now, because I bet you 17 and 18 is going to make some changes here.
Yeah. There's a colleague of mine who wrote a blog post about it, but using it to do, multi-master type thing.
Yeah.
But it's not really. It's just,
No, yeah. Like I said, merge is very, very complicated. Every database platform that's gone down this path has a hard time with it. And it's not just because the database doesn't do it right or something. It's because the complexity of what happens in conflicts and that sort of thing.
But I think we've seen multiple times that the Postgres kind of releases the simple version, which doesn't really work very well. They keep improving it. We saw with logical replication, with what's called the partitioning. Eventually got better, but the first versions were horrible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The statement is that it eventually got better, and it got better in those times. And it absolutely will. 100% it'll get better. I have every faith in it. But that's why I put the caveat. I wouldn't build something off this right now. Now, the second point here, the logical replication from standby, that one I really like. That one was something at one of my former companies. We wanted to do that a lot. We had a standby because we had a physical replica and we just had a standby, and we always wanted to logically replicate off the standby, and we couldn't in the past. So this one I really like. This one is really a cool thing that I think could be an advantage. I worry what it means downstream though. So once your standby has to then replicate and everything else too, what does that mean for transactions and wall log reading and all of that sort of thing? What's the side effect? But I do like the idea of this, and I think this is going to be a good one too as well.
yeah, it allowed a lot of companies wanted that to offload work from their primary.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
So I still think the documentation on it, it's kind of hard to follow. I wrote a blog post about it last year when it was still in beta.
Yeah.
But I think the docs could be user friendlyized quite a bit.
I think that of most of the Postgres docs.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm in agreement on that one.
Roberto, when there's a lag on the, between the standby and the replication, will it impact the primary?
I'm what? Sorry?
When there's lag on the replication of the standby, will it impact the primary?
Well, wall will keep accumulating there until the standby has read everything. So yeah, you need to watch your standbys. You need to watch your disk space on what you're accumulating on wall. So yeah.
Is the benefit just like IO?
Well, let's say I have my primary where my application is writing to a lot, and then I have a standby that's a logical replication of it, and I can have my some offsite or another data center or another region. Then I can have my big data analysis or my data warehousing connect to my standby and keep running these processes. And I don't have to connect to my primary all the way. So some companies have these databases, these standby databases in different locations where people are doing things and they don't want to have to connect all the way to the primary. But you do have to watch it, because if the primary, if the standby, it's no longer replaying, you shut it down, the primary is going to be like, oh, he hasn't replayed it. I need to keep these wall records around. So
yeah, that's why I was kind of saying the downstream effect is still there. It's still there.
Yeah.
You're just moving it so that you have kind of something off to do IO somewhere else with some sort of analytics somewhere else, which is good. It's a good thing, but your downstream impact could still be there 100%.
Yeah. So definitely do monitoring there. So
yeah. Okay. The performance enhancements on this one on logical replication, I think we're relating to parallelization as well, I believe, for that initial snapshot and some of the copy, I believe, is what this was talking about. If I remember correctly from my reading. Okay. And then new roles for creating replication. This one was just a quick, they created a new system role that you can use so that you can create replication and things like that. It's a new permission level, I believe is what it was, if I remember correctly from my reading. So. Okay. All right, so monitoring, this one I was really excited about too. When I saw this, I was like, yes, I just love the second and the third ones. So I'm very happy about this, and Belvin, you're gonna be very happy about this too. As a matter of fact, I may tell you that you have to upgrade just to update your script with this. Not that that's gonna happen, it's gonna take us a while, but so PG-stat.io, more detailed metrics about IO usage. I was really excited about that. I'm like, this is one thing coming from the SQL Server world heavily. I always felt like Postgres was lacking some of these internal metrics and things like this. So seeing this to me is really, really cool.
You don't get that out of AWS side?
I want Postgres to return it to me. I don't want it as much out of AWS. I don't mind the AWS side of it, but I like Postgres to tell me what it's doing more, and it's more detailed. I usually will trust the database engine more than I'll trust something monitoring the database engine. In other words, because they're going to say, well, this is what the OS said. You need both of those pictures. I want the database engine to tell me, and I feel like Postgres has always been behind on telling me those metrics. So I was really excited about this one personally. So. And the PG-stat.io, just more detailed metrics about IO usage. I didn't go in depth. There's a big article on it. You can go see it. Talks about all of the IO in there and everything else, and tells you what the columns are. So just go look it up. But it's really cool, and I'm really excited about seeing it. Stat all tables gets this new column. See, this is what I'm really excited about, is it tells you the last sequence scan. So this gives you a really good idea, in my opinion, of when was the last time my table was hit, accessed, used, something else. If a sequence scan came across the table, and I know the table's in use, if it hasn't had a sequence scan in 6 months, nobody's querying it because it's not there.
Does that mean the last sequential scan or just any scan?
Well, that one specifically is for the last sequential scan, yeah. So you're right, you might have something else in there that doesn't work, but it's still a good indicator. It's getting closer to tell you that, yeah. That one I was really excited about, because there's a lot of cases I've come into databases where it's like, well, we have all these tables, but are we actually using all of them? No, we're not, and it's hard to tell that because Postgres doesn't give you a good way to see it.
But isn't it true that you don't want sequential scan?
Yeah, but again, I just want to know if the table's in
Yeah.
use. I'm not using it for that. I'm using the tables in use. Yeah. So, and then all indexes, the stat all indexes, this one's really good too. Last scan for the index. So here you go. Now you know whether or not you can drop an index. It's that simple. You can literally say, hey, this hasn't been touched in 6 months. Can we drop it? Yes, we can, because it hasn't been touched. So I love that one. Like I said, Belvin, I expect you to put that on ASAP and upgrade us to 16 in the next week for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I think the last time we talked about this, if we have that option to like move to PG-16, it would be very interesting to see how, how it works. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely research the stat.io too. I think that's going to be a really big one. Again, I didn't go deep dive into this. I just wanted to bring it up for discussion. The improved auto explain, this one to me is complete black box. I've never turned on auto explain. I can't fathom too many of my systems that I do that, because auto explain means that in the log, it immediately shows you the explain plan for each query. I'm like, there is no way my logs would ever handle that. I haven't been on a Postgres server that I could turn that on ever. Maybe in the dev environment, maybe, but in a production environment, I can't turn that on. It would blow that log up so fast that, yeah, it'd make your head spin. So I haven't looked at that one at all. No idea on that one. And then better query tracking for PG stat statements. The way this one was explained in the article is that they did some sort of better aggregation. There was something around the IDs, the query IDs, that wasn't aggregating properly or something was getting missed, and they bundled them together in a better way. So it kind of made it a more effective PG stat statements.
I've always felt like it's a good idea, but we haven't been able to get as much out of this.
Out of the stat statements. So in my opinion, I think stat statements is really, really good. It's just really hard to analyze. And I think that's maybe where this is trying to make it a little better, is that it improved how that aggregation works. So maybe it'll get better after this point. So, yeah, I think the other problem I have is that PG stat statements to me was always a way to say, in SQL Server, we had the wonderful trace where we could just trace every statement that came across. We'd see it no matter what, and it was easy to analyze. In PG stat statements, we kind of saw that same thing, but it wasn't every single thing. You know, it wasn't every little piece. And it's like, oh, so it's close, but it's not entirely there. And that's why we always had a problem with stat statements. I always had a problem with it. So, but that's just me personally. Like I said, it doesn't add any columns. They didn't say anything about on here. It's just improving how it's doing it. That's it. So, okay. Any other questions on the monitoring ones? So security, this one kind of added some new simple security things. Again, these were not things that I deep dived into. I thought it was really interesting that the PG HPA can now take a regular expression for pattern matching the user. So you can say something like, I want to allow this server to come in, and anybody that comes in with P star at entrada.com or something like that. So anybody with that thing can come in no matter what their username is called.
Instead of putting all of them, like all the users.
Yeah, instead of putting all the users in there, you can come up with some sort of pattern and say, this is okay and clear. I don't see a ton of use cases for that. Mainly just because I haven't seen a lot of HBAs where you've got to put thousands of people in it or something. But maybe there's an application out there that they were generating something and then they had to make sure that generation could come through.
I can mention one.
Yeah, go for it.
So I work with a bank. And they use our Kubernetes product to deploy Postgres and Kubernetes and basically do a, Postgres as a service. So they have all these gazillions of teams who spin up and spin down Postgres instances internally. And they have hundreds, I don't know, several hundreds of users. And they authenticate against, Active Directory, using Kerberos. In some instances, they use LDAP, but they have these myriad of groups and users and patterns. So this came in really handy for them. They when the group starts with this, then it goes there. They can do this. When the group starts with that, then they can do that. When, so it starts to matter when you have a lot of users.
Yeah,
a lot of different things.
That's great. That's a great use case. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I want to hear about. I'm curious what the use cases were for it because I can't see it from what we use or what I do, but that's great to hear one like that. I think, Robert, going to that next point too, the external config files, that was probably to help with that too as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you can put an external file and say, just look at this file and go from here, and then that's what it'll use. So it's a little easier to manage. So I guess if you've got thousands of users or hundreds of users, this is going to make your life a lot easier to manage and deal with. If I have that problem, please come and shoot me so I can do something else.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you have to deal with it, Robert. Okay, so then we've got require auth function too. This one changed some of the parameters around the auth function inside Postgres. And again, I think this was really specialized to a certain use case of some sort. That somebody said, we've got to do this for our auth authentication, that we're using this auth piece. And so we needed these parameters, and that's what I'm guessing this was written to. I haven't heard or seen what it's used for, so I'm not sure on this. But it is a new feature.
Yeah, it allows you from the libpq level to just say, I want to use this authentication. And then the server can say, oh, I support it or I don't support it. So it's one of those things that security teams,
Yeah, like.
yeah, they like it and they require it. And then, one of the companies that works around Postgres is like, okay, we'll implement it for this customer, and then they contribute it.
Yeah.
I think it was Fujitsu or EDB, one of the two.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. And then Kerberos credential delegation too, where I believe what this said is you can use a Kerberos key instead of necessarily just a Postgres key and do the certification to that.
So you come from SQL Server, wasn't Kerberos like a very complicated SQL Server? I remember that the ancestry was so hard
Well, in the SQL Server world, so the question was SQL Server more complicated with Kerberos? SQL Server was everything about Active Directory. If you weren't using Active Directory, everything was difficult. It's that simple. Because if you weren't in the Microsoft stack, you were difficult no matter what. I wouldn't say that my first foray into Postgres was great with like Kerberos or something else. Because again, it started at 9.6 and 10 and those sort of things. But Microsoft was built into the Active Directory system. And if you try to play outside of that system, nothing worked well. Nothing did. I mean, I know companies that literally, if they had to deal with Microsoft SQL Server, they would kind of sync into an Active Directory from their other systems just so it could use that and function properly and make it easier because it's just not worth fighting the battle. So. But definitely on this one too, I think this is one of those specialized things that somebody needed this for this specific thing and they use it and it's great and they love it.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to remember, but I think I saw a talk by Stephen Frost on it. I think he implemented it. He's done a lot of the Kerberos stuff. But
Yeah.
basically, if I recall correctly, don't quote me on it, but if your client has gotten a ticket from Kerberos, then he can, if your Postgres server has gotten a ticket from the Kerberos, then he can delegate that ticket to someone else, to another application, without that application having to get its own ticket.
Yeah.
So as long as Kerberos allows it, your Kerberos servers allows it, then you can do that and save on setup. And
Yeah, that's what I remember reading too on it. It was just something like that. Again, kind of a use case. If you're doing that sort of thing, it's probably going to be something you love. If you haven't heard about it, it's probably not something you're going to touch for a while. So. Okay. And then that's really the last one I had. So I picked these both up from these two sites was kind of my key things that I used for all of them. One's obviously the PostgreSQL.org, talking about the news and the Postgres 16 release. And then I really liked this blog post that had a lot of these broken out and some of the key concepts to each one of them. Again, the blog post wasn't a deep dive. It was a general overview, but the release part, you can definitely go into deep dive. And then it sounds like Roberto and Crunchy Data probably have some great blog posts on some of these as well too, if you're planning on using them.
yeah,
So-
I can mention one that I just remembered on performance that I don't think I saw in your notes, but it was actually released on the back branches, the previous releases. So it was released with 16, and there was some back and forth about should we release this to the previous supported versions. And they waited until 16.2 came out and decided that it was battle tested enough to do something that they usually don't do, which is backport this fix or this improvement to the supported version. So 16.2, 15, or I should say 15.6, 14.11, 13.14, and 12.18. They all include this. So it was a simple fix to a problem that was very difficult to find. It was Andres Brian who found it. So when you started to get a lot of clients, then Postgres would have a lot of lock contention, and the performance would fall off a cliff in certain use cases. So you basically have exponential decrease in what Postgres was able to serve. So he did that fix, and it was a very simple fix, but it basically the performance it degrades, but not exponentially. It degrades linearly. So it was a big improvement for performance in 16, and now in the latest versions of the other releases, it's also available.
All right.
It's very interesting to read the thread on it.
Yeah, at our company, we have a couple of DBEs who are very good about analyzing the queries. And they sometimes find like after X number of joins or after this scenario, performance just degrades very quick.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
That's great. You can, if you've got the link or anything, Roberto, drop it in the
Yeah, I
chat.
posted a link to the thread, the whole thread here. But if you just read the release notes for the release note that talks about it, it's very unassuming. Basically, this is what this says. But you're like, huh, okay. But
I can't share it up onto that screen, unfortunately. So, but definitely, the chat is kind of, will be on the recording, I believe, and then also,
yeah,
we'll post it into maybe the Zoom link.
the one big point that I like with this, it was basically a big performance improvement for very cheap. It didn't change much, but it was a big change that was visible. But I try to tell people all the time, like, yeah, you should update to latest minor version, update to the latest minor version. People are like, no, it's okay. You know, no, there's good reasons to upgrade to latest minor versions.
Yes, there is, even if it takes time and energy to do so.
Yeah.
Sometimes longer than others. But yeah, I agreed. It's good to get to those minor version upgrades. Yeah, so. Okay, well, that is pretty much all I have for the 16 discussion. Definitely, 17 is coming too, so don't, go out there and take a look at that, like I said, later this year. But if you're considering a move to 16 or something, check out these links and you'll get more information about it. Be very helpful. And as always, we're looking for presenters for the next month too. We'll be in March. And then we will have our March meeting, but then we'll have in April, I probably won't have a meeting because we'll have the Salt Lake City SQL conference. Typically when I put on that event, I don't do the meetups the same month, simply because it's a busy month. And actually I'll be in Chicago right before this meetup and stuff too. So it's going to be a really busy month for me in April. So. But yeah. All right, let me stop that. Let me end this recording.